Well, hello everyone and welcome to yet another Discussions with Dolf. And you probably can't see it yet from the scenery behind me, but behind me we have what used to be known as the Texas Book Depository. And for some of you that will mean absolutely nothing, and for others of you, you will know that I am talking about the fact that I'm in Dealy Plaza in downtown Dallas, Texas. This is of course the infamous spot at which JFK was shot from the 6th floor window of the building behind me by Lee Harvey Oswald. It terminated his life in a rather dramatic way. Those of you who have seen the footage will know what I'm talking about. His brain was in fact splattered across the vehicle. Secret Service guys pounced upon him to protect him further. And there have been many conspiracy theories over the years, of course. In fact, to my right, and I might pick up the camera because I don't have my normal setup with me, but over here we've got what's known as the grassy knoll, and there are accusations that the true shooter, the true murderer, if you like, was on the grassy knoll. And in an ironic way, I was involved in that investigation years after that, in the 1980s, when they had this footage and they wanted to determine where it was actually coming from, and also where the sound was coming from. So we were doing Fourier transform, fast Fourier transform at the time, to reverse engineer this and try and localize the source of the shockwave, the sound, whether it in fact came from the grassy knoll or whether it came from my own. So in a bizarre way, I've had my own interesting association with this case. One of the reasons I'm here today is this is not the first time that I've shot a Discussions with Dolf video from here. It's got to be 15 years ago that I shot these, and in fact I shot these videos long before YouTube existed. And if you're really one of the old school, you'll remember that we used to be able to charge a lot of money. We charged $50 a month for people to receive my weekly Discussions with Dolf videos. And as I've always related, that was very good. We had a lot of subscribers, but an event happened in the world that meant my subscriber base went from over 1,000 down to 0 in about 6 months' time. And that event was the introduction of YouTube. Why pay me $50 a month for 4 mere videos when you can get a lifetime of videos added every day to YouTube, and you can watch them free of charge, other than you have to be bothered with the ads, although you can get rid of them by paying a fee, but then it's no longer free of charge if you follow my line of thinking. So I have done one here before, and it reminds me of another incident where I was in Akihabara, a suburb of Tokyo, where it's known as the Electronic City. I used to go there as a kid a lot because they had the latest of the latest. And I shot a video there, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and then I shot another video on a more recent trip, probably about 2 years ago. And the thing that stands out in my mind about that video is a lesson about real estate, because at the end of the day, a lot of these Discussions with Dolf are about real estate. And my observation at the time was that when I shot that first video in Tokyo, I think it was about 15 years prior, the shops were all occupied by tenants. And in those days, they were occupied to a large extent by stores selling cassette decks, Walkman. You may be too young to know what a Walkman is, but for those of us who remember, this is a way of putting a cassette, an audio cassette, into a gadget, and you hit the play button, and there were lots of motors to make the tape wind, and motors to have the spool that is empty take up the slack, and a motor to wind the tape past the head and the capstan head itself. So it had lots of complicated electromechanical things going on there, but we could listen to music in a portable format. And then of course that's all been made redundant by newer technology, and it's a good thing that it has. But those stores were occupied by people selling Walkman, and they paid good rental income on those. And 15 years afterwards, the stores were still occupied by tenants, but they didn't sell Walkman. No one would want to buy a Walkman unless it's for a museum or something. So my point is, rent was still being paid. The owners of those stores, the owners of the commercial real estate, were still making money, inflation indexed money. However, the people manufacturing cassette tape recorders, they never earned another dollar or yen from that cassette machine that they manufactured. And they couldn't even use their skill and experience in manufacturing cassette machines to manufacture the new models. You might argue, well, they're now making the silicon-based devices, the MP3 players, or the streaming music service, or the smartphones. That's possible, but those stores have been occupied. So now I want to take you on a bit of a walk, because a similar thing has happened here between my visit to Dealy Plaza some 15, 20 years ago and now. So right on this corner, apart from the fountain here, which I'll show you, you can see we have got the Texas Book Depository in the background there. In fact, it's from that window on the 6th floor that Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly fired his shot. But you'll see on the other side here, there is a brand spanking new building it has gone in. Here is another one. It is an existing building that they are remodeling. And on the corner, they're putting in what looks like it's going to be a very fancy apartment or residential complex, refitting it into this beautiful old building. And the point is, time marches on. The uses of these buildings changes from what used to be largely industrial to somewhat commercial and now even residential. Even the Texas Book Depository, it became the Dallas County Administrative Building, so it was no longer used for a textbook depository. Of course, we aren't using textbooks anymore. Many people are getting their information on iPads and the like. But even if we go beyond this residential building, you will see that there is lots of construction going on, scaffolding, cranes, there is activity here. And that's sort of my point, that wherever you go in the world, and especially with the passage of time, and it's something that takes a bit of getting used to, because when you first travel and you're all excited to see a place, you see it as it is in that moment. And it is only when you have the luxury of being able to go back to a place some 10, 15, 20 years later that you start to realize some things. When you look at photos from your first visit, you'll say, hang on a minute, the cars were all old. No, they weren't. They were new when we were there the first time. They have become old. The buildings have become somewhat older, but unlike cars, which we tend to scrap when we replace them with new cars, I know it's kind of ironic to have all these sirens going around in the very place where all this dramatic activity happened 63 years ago. I hope you can still hear your voice above the noise, and if not, that might be a blessing. But either way, everything has changed. The buildings have gotten older. We don't scrap them as much as we do cars. We tend to refurbish them and remodel them. I've given you an example of a beautiful residential refurbishment, but also where they tore one down and they put something up new. There will always be rental paid if you have the right location, and that is why I am so enamored with real estate. Despite all the changes in industries and technologies, despite everyone I know whose positions have been made redundant because there's no longer a need for that service. That does not apply to real estate. Yes, the goods and services that the tenants might supply and produce and sell from inside their premises changes. The industry may fall over, but it will be replaced by a new one, and there will be a new tenant. And that's what I find so ravishingly exciting about real estate, just about anywhere I am. So anyway, that's all we have time for today, but I want to thank you, as always, for being on this program. And until next time, I want to wish you successful investing. Thank you so much.